often mistaken for different nationalities. When I lived in Manila, Philippines, as a correspondent, I came back late at night to my apartment, and armed security guards stopped me and said, "Where are you going? Which room?" I told him my room number, but he said, "What is the name of the residence?" "Hasegawa." "What is your relationship?" He was becoming very impatient. "Me? I'm Hasegawa." It took a while for him to realize that I was a resident. I think he took me as a local Filipina. And when I lived in Cairo, I used to travel around Middle East. I was once at an airport and walking toward the immigration. An official came and stopped me and took me to a long queue of women, mostly from Asia. Other people were passing by so quickly while I waited in line. After a while, I asked the staff with my passport in my hand and said, "It's taking so much time. Are you sure this is the line?" He was shocked to see the passport and took me right away to another section where I passed so easily. It seems I was taken to this line for so-called domestic workers, mainly from South and Southeast Asia. Well, okay, you may think it could be difficult for non-Asians to distinguish Asians. I agree. But once, when I arrived at a Tokyo airport and walked out of the building, a Japanese man came up to me and said, "Taxi?" with a very good English accent. It's easy for me to ask, "Don't I look Japanese to you?" But what does it mean to look like Japanese? Is it the language, the way I look, how I dress, or act? So, why am I speaking about what and how we see when the theme of this talk today is about things unseen? I think it's because I'm a journalist. I've been in this job for 30 years, covering mainly issues in Japan, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. These are some of the photos from my experience. We observe, listen, and think to report on news. So one of the things we learn when we start our job is to go to places, listen to people on the ground. Seeing and listening both are crucial in reporting news. Yeah. This one is me here. But along the way, we realize that sometimes what we see can be deceiving. I'd like you to see this photo here. What comes to your mind when you see this photo? Anyone? Yes. How about this one? Actually, it's the same doll wearing a baya, the black dress over this casual clothes you see here. This is a doll I bought in Cairo when I used to live in Cairo. So it's called Fulla, and it represents a typical lifestyle of young Muslim girls. It's very popular in the Middle East and Asia. This is a story I read. But did you get the same impression from the photos that I showed you at the beginning? What we see can have great impact on our perception. Okay, we often talk about the importance of first impression, right? It's true. The danger is that when we see things, we tend to believe we know. So I'd like you to see this photo now. Do you see the little things on the back of the camel? These are actually robots. They're the jockeys for the camel race that is very popular in the Middle East. The jock, well, the robots are holding the whips to control the camels. The robots are remotely controlled by the owners who would drive along the camels during the race. It's quite funny to see this little robots riding the camels. But I didn't cover this story just because it's entertaining or because I was fascinated by the use of technology. There's a dark history behind it. For a long time, the jockeys were children, mostly from South Asia, and they were mainly often victims of human trafficking. They were separated from their parents. They were not fed well because you didn't want the riders to be heavy. The practice was heavily criticized, and the use of children was finally banned. But to continue the race, they introduced the robots. I think the photo or the scene would give you a completely different impression if this history was included in the story. And that was the focus of my story here. This is a photo from another story I wrote. It was in Dubai. Dubai. I had the image of like booming city with skyscrapers and fancy shopping malls. And it was so. But this lady here was not enjoying the city. She's hiding her face because she did not want to be identified. She's from Africa, and she was a victim of human trafficking. She was forced to do domestic labor. I went to a shelter for women like her to shed light on another reality behind all the prosperity we see in the city. This was the story. Okay. We interviewed this man in Mauritania in Africa. Does everybody know where Mauritania is? It's northwest part of the African continent, near Morocco. So he's a former slave who managed to escape from his master's house. Slavery was banned in the country for a long time, but the practice remained. So we see octopus in Japanese supermarkets that are sold, that are brought from Mauritania, right? But did you know about the slavery in the country? The world is so diverse, with various people, languages, cultures, customs, religions, and the ways of thinking around the globe. So, with rapid globalization, and thanks to the internet and information technology, the world seems to be getting smaller. Well, you can see what's happening on the other side of the globe anytime. Well, you can read many things through machine translations. And you can look up almost anything on your smartphone, right? So what's the problem? I think we see too much. I can put it in another way. We're flooded by information, images, videos, articles, news, blogs, whatever. But because we see and read so much, we think we know. But are we sure? When I began working as a journalist, we were still writing stories on paper with pen. No cell phones, no internet. Because we had limited resources and means, we tried to get to places like this. We've tried to find people, listen to people, and went to different sources for information. We also had to think very hard to see the context and meanings from limited information we gathered. It's time consuming and a lot of work. But through this process, I was able to learn how to think and look beyond what I actually see or hear. Evaluating and checking the information is crucial in process in seeing the things unseen. And what we cannot see are often more important and critical. And those are the information valuable that we'd like to present to our readers. Now we have so much information. We think we know, so it deprives us from thinking what could be behind all those stories. We all know about fake news and information war that has great impact on international politics, economy, society, and everything else. So seeking and providing facts and relevant context to our readers has become one of the most important tasks for us journalists so that people can make their own assessments based on them. It's like the examples I gave you today. You've seen those photos, but when I gave you additional information, I think it gave you another perspective. That's my job. That's what I do. But you don't have to be a journalist to do that. Try look into different information or dig in a little bit deeper when you find something interesting. You might find something hidden behind all the information that's on the surface, and it could give you a new perspective. I hope you try. Thank you.